now we have pages that allow us to programmatically navigate from one page to the next if some condition is met, right? Now over here, notice that we are displaying the profile page, but it's empty, right? Ideally, if I log in as Alice, right, I would see the profile for Alice, right? Or if I'm logging in as Bob, I would display the profile of Bob. Okay. Also, I'd like to point out. Notice the network here, right? As you refresh, let's clear this. If you go back to login, notice that the login view, we fetch the Ajax fetched this template from the server dynamically and injected it into that view in the ng view. But if we go back and say login, notice that the profile page was not loaded. See that? We didn't go to the server for the profile because we had already loaded it in the previous call, right? If we cancel and go back to the login page, notice that it's not loaded again. See that? Because Angular is caching all these templates that it loaded, right? It no longer needs to go back to the server, as opposed to, in a classical not single page application, each one of these would be individual calls to a server and retrieving all this again from the server, right? So anyway, so what I'd like to be able to do is, if we type Bob, we'd like to be able to display here the content for Bob or Alice, right? One naive way of implementing that is to replicate this same data in the profile page, and the profile controller, right? We would need a controller to be able to dynamically display any of that content, right? So let's do that first. Right? Let's do that first. So let's create a controller for the profile page. Let's do that. So I'm going to copy this login controller because I'm lazy. So I'm going to call this the profile controller. Okay, and in the profile controller, I'm going to rename all this, right? So this is not the login controller. This is the profile. So I'm going to replace. Okay, I think that's it. I have my content there. I really don't have this handler right here, so I'm going to remove that. I don't need that. And what I like to be able to display is different content depending on how I navigated here, right? Which user did you navigate right from? How did you log in, right? So somehow I need to capture that, and the only way that I could capture it right now is if somehow I pass you some parameter, right, so that you know who just logged in. Yes, right. So I could perhaps, if I logged in as Alice, pass you Alice's ID, or if I logged in as Bob, I can pass you the ID for Bob, and so on and so forth, right? I would need to be able to capture that parameter from the URL. Also, notice that my route is different. It doesn't just start with profile. It's profile followed by something. Yes? So I need to work on those two things. First, I need to have this change the route so that it allows me to pass that thing, right? And then I need to be able to capture that ID from the controller, right? So let's do that. Right, so let's change the profile, the configuration here, so that instead of navigating to just profile, it'll be profile followed by something. Right? I'm going to pass you the user ID. Right? Notice the colon. Right? The colon says that this is not a literal string. Right? It's a placeholder, and we're giving it the name user ID. Right? Whatever is mapped there, it will be available somehow through some variable called user ID. Right? So now, if I go back to the login and I refresh, if I log in, Bob, if I click on login, notice that it navigates to profile, but profile is no longer mapped to anything. Right? It is mapped to profile followed by something. Whatever, profile followed by whatever, maps to this profile. Yes? So profile followed by whatever maps to this template. Okay? It is our responsibility to treat it and understand it and interpret it as a user ID. Yes? All right, so let's do that. First of all, we need to pass this user ID. So how do we do that? So from the login controller, this profile no longer exists, right? We need to create the correct mapping. It is profile slash followed by something. Followed by who? Followed by the user that was found, right? The user that we matched. So what we could do here, instead of saying found equal true, we could maybe say found equal the user that was found. Okay, and then this could be matched as a null. Right. So this says if found. Right. So this is a truthy an expression. Right. If this is not false, not zero, not empty string, not whatever, then we will do this. Right? Usually this is considered to be bad practice to use truthy expressions, at least on the JavaScript side. Truthy expressions on the UI are acceptable, right? But here they're usually unacceptable. So you might want to explicitly check to see if this is not null. Okay, to make it explicit that there's a flag that tells me that this is actually defined. Okay, so if it's not null, that means that it must be equal to some object, right? And part of that object has the ID. See that? So I could use that found dot underscore ID. Right? Has that ID. Right? So let's try that. Let's go back to the login page, and it's not loading. What's going on? Ah! Okay, login. There we go. So if we log in as Bob, I log in, notice that it's profile slash 234. See that? But if I log in as Alice, notice that it's profile slash 123. See that? They both map to the profile. Everybody good? Right? We just need to be able to grab that 123 or that 234 and then search for the correct user in some collection. Yes? So to grab that, the profile controller, right, can use another service, right, that allows it to parse that parameter, and it's a service that is provided by the routing library, right, the same ng-route library that we're using, right, the one that we're using to declare all these whens. Right? Notice that it's the route provider that is part of the ng-route. It's part of the entire routing mechanism, right? That the ng-route library handles, right? What to inject for a route, how to handle all the parameters, all that is handled by this one ng-route library, okay? And including, right, mapping these IDs, right, mapping anything in the route, right, everything in the URL to named placeholders. Okay, so it provides here a route params, right, that allows you to retrieve parameters from the route, like the name suggests. Okay, so we could retrieve the user ID from route params user ID. Okay, this user ID right here, it's the same as this variable user ID, right? It's a map. Right? It's a map of multiple attributes that we could parse because this could have many parameters, right? It could have a whole bunch of parameters, right? And they would all be parsed and put in this map that we can then retrieve from route params. Yes? Right now we just have one, just user ID. So that maps to that placeholder right there. And we're just copying it into our local variable of the same name. Doesn't have to match, but it's a good idea. Everybody okay? All right. So now we could just look up that user using the user ID, right? Maybe create a little function, right, that find user by ID, if I give it a user ID, it retrieves the user by ID. It iterates for var u in users, and if users sub u dots underscore ID matches the user ID, then I'm going to return the users sub u, right? Otherwise, I return null. Everybody okay? Right? So we could use this function and reuse this and say that the current user, right, we can say that the model that the current user that we just loaded is going to be equal. Notice that we're going to bind it to the model, so the view is going to get a hold of this, right? Right? Is whatever user we find if we pass the user ID. Everybody okay? Or null if we don't find it. Okay. Now on the view, on the profile view, right, we can just render the object model dot user, right? So model dot user will be this model dot user over here, right? And I'm just happening to use the same exact name for the binding, right? But it doesn't have to be. But it's a good idea just to keep everything straight in my head, right? Everybody okay? Right? Now this controller, we just have to load it. We never loaded it. Right? We never loaded it. We're going to load it from our index page. So let's load it. It's the profile controller. There it is. We loaded it, and we're going to tell the routing here is that template right there, the profile template, the controller is the profile controller. That's the name. And the template is going to refer to that controller internally. It's going to refer to it by the name model. Everybody okay? Right? So if we go back to the controller and we re-render, notice that we have the object for Alice. See that? Or we have the object for Bob, or for Charlie, or for Janunzi. See that? Right? We are retrieving the data of for that particular user ID. Okay? Right? We just have to now load that content for the form. Right? We have to bind in the profile, right? All these input fields, we should be able to bind all these things, right? We can say, hey, that input field, the value of this input field, right? The value for this username input field, it will be what? Will be model.user.username, right? And what else do we have here? First name. I don't know if we have a first name. Do we have a first name? ng model will be model.user.firstname. I don't remember if we have a first name. Let's go on the controller. Yes, we have first name and last name. Right. So if we re-render this, notice that indeed we have the username, right, and we have the first name. Notice that if I hit here 1, 2, 3, it changes to Alice and Alice, right? It goes to 2, 3, 4. It goes to Bob. Notice the traffic in the network. There is absolutely no traffic to the server, right? The server has, we're not navigating away. We're not refreshing the document. We're not, re-rendering any of this, right? It's being re-rendered right on the DOM, right? There's no traffic back to the server. The server doesn't know any of this, okay? Eventually, in the next assignment number 4, we will change that. All this data is going to migrate to the server, okay? And make it so we can make these changes permanent. Right now, none of this is permanent. But notice that if I refresh the page, it still knows that it's Bob, right? Because we are encoding the state on we're encoding that state on the URL. I can recreate this content just with that URL. Make sense? right? And we can also now remove this here. Right, there's Bob, or Alice, or Charlie. Everybody okay? So this now should work. If I log in as Bob, I see Bob. If I log in as Alice, I see Alice, right? And so on and so forth. Everybody okay? All right. Okay. So let's close